Now, the newly elected U.S. House of Representatives has so far failed to elect their Speaker, this even after 6 rounds of voting in the last 2 days. The voting will now take place when the House convenes next. House Republicans failed to elect their leader, Kevin McCarthy, to the Speaker's position. They've also failed to come up with a new strategy to end the political chaos within the grand old party. With every successive vote, the House plunges deeper into disarray as the votes produced almost the same outcome. Around 20 conservative Republicans still refuse to support McCarthy, leaving him far short of the 218 needed to win the gavel.
"20 people demanding that 201 surrender to them unconditionally. Well, I will not surrender unconditionally. If you have conditions, give them to us. We'll consider them. Doesn't mean we'll do them, but you have to talk about them. But we've asked and we've asked, what is it you want? What do you need? But you have 20 people demanding the unconditional surrender of, including this group of warriors. We will not unconditionally surrender. Tell us what you want. We might surrender if you tell us the terms, but just so you know, we're in the strong position. There's 201 of us and 20 of them.
Seeing no quick way out of the political standoff, Republicans voted abruptly to adjourn. This as they desperately search for an end to the chaos of their own making. The right-flank conservatives, led by the Freedom Caucus and aligned with Donald Trump, appeared emboldened by the standoff, although Trump has publicly backed McCarthy. The California Republican, McCarthy, meanwhile vowed to keep fighting despite the grueling spectacle. This even as animated private discussions broke out on the chamber floor between McCarthy's supporters and detractors searching for an endgame. Meanwhile, the Democrats re-up their leader, Hakeem Jeffries, for Speaker. This chaos marks the first time in 100 years that a nominee for House Speaker could not take the gavel on the first vote. This disorganized start to the new Congress pointed to difficulties ahead, with Republicans now in control of the House. President Joe Biden has called the chaos embarrassing as he urged lawmakers to get their act together. For more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani is joining us live from New York now. Susan, Kevin McCarthy has failed to garner the support from his Republican contemporaries. What can you tell us of this?
Yeah, so it was Kevin McCarthy who suggested that they don't put out a vote until some of their differences are resolved. So tomorrow noon, Washington, D.C. local time, once again, lawmakers go into the chamber hoping to find a solution, despite the fact that the definition of insanity is to do something over and over again, the same thing, and expect a different result. But apparently that's what we are going to see tomorrow. Maybe we'll see a different result and there'll be some kind of compromise. But the question is whether or not the Republicans can come together and rally around another nominee that would want the job, like Kevin McCarthy. After all, these 20 so-called defectors, they're from the Freedom Caucus. They're saying that they want to put up individuals like Jim Jordan. Well, he doesn't want the job, first of all. And then second of all, he doesn't have that many votes. And then you also have the situation where it's not very clear exactly. I mean, maybe these negotiations are happening behind closed doors, what these individuals are really asking for. I mean, we're hearing one thing or another. And we do know that, one of their main concerns is regarding spending. But again, we don't know the details. And Kevin McCarthy has been very clear, saying that, he wants a cap on spending and controlling spending. But apparently it doesn't go far enough. So, we'll have to wait and see what happens tomorrow. It's hard to tell at this point. But I think what's concerning right now for many is that this doesn't take longer and just go into a situation where the GOP is perceived as a party that just prefers to be in a minority, so it doesn't have to really do anything, and then just criticize the other side, criticize the quote-unquote swamp without having to actually, take any concrete measure or any concrete action and just sort of sit on the sidelines and criticize the situation. Hopefully, what we're seeing is the democratic process at play, and something will come out of this.
Right, absolutely, Susan. In fact, I wanted to understand, what do you think are some of the reasons behind these 20 lawmakers deciding 20 conservative Republicans, deciding not to support Kevin McCarthy?
There are various reasons. On the one hand, you have to argue that, in a democracy, in a democratic liberal democracy, something like this perhaps does happen, although not in our lifetime. It's been 100 years. Usually the party decides to rally around one candidate and try to get jobs done as soon as possible. After all, that's why the voters voted for these representatives. On the other hand, there may be concerns that perhaps McCarthy is not, quote unquote, conservative enough for the Freedom Caucus, for these individuals. Now, it's safe to say that the Freedom Caucus, or the so-called populist wing of the Republican Party, just to say it in more international jargon, they have other members that support McCarthy. So, on the one hand, some say they want gravel on some committees. They want to negotiate some positions before McCarthy takes the lead. They want a cap on a lot of spending. They want to make sure that, spending is really negotiated with McCarthy. But McCarthy has already given to something very important, and that's his speakership. Should he become speaker, would be jeopardized if 5 GOP members decide that they don't want him to be speaker. So, he's given some incentives to these 20 or so Republicans. But then the question is, how far more is he going to go? And if he goes further, is he going to weaken his own position as speaker, not only among his own party, but then negotiating with the Democrats as well on the other side? So, it's a tough situation to be in. And I just go back to what I said earlier. It's hard to imagine who would really want this job at this point with such a slim majority and this infighting that's going on. And Kevin McCarthy seems to be the only one, except another individual that came up today as well, Byron Donald.
Right. Well, Susan, thank you so much for bringing us all the latest on this. We will, of course, continue to track this closely with you there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.